two aspects. The first one is data coming into Crunchbase, a few members on the business development team that focuses on partnering with companies that can enrich Crunchbase's data set. On the other side, we have data going out, and that's where the revenue partnerships team sits. And that's the team I'm on today. If you go on LinkedIn and you search any private company on LinkedIn, for example, Stripe, you would see funding data powered by Crunchbase, who the investors are, what's their funding history, how much have they raised.
Hi, Etan. Great to have you today.
Roman, excited to talk with you today.
You are in the partnership team in Crunchbase, which is like very famous company. Very excited to hear like how Crunchbase does partnership, which is probably best in class. And then before that, you was in WeWork doing partnerships there, and it's amazing company. And you went through very interesting times in WeWork. I look forward to chatting with you about all of that, sort of best practices in partnerships, data partnerships, and then how do you build resilient partnerships, especially in sort of turbulent times. I would love to start today by asking you, like, how do you came to partnerships? What does your sort of journey look like from the beginning?
How I got into partnerships was quite different, actually. So back in 2017, I was a senior in college, and I was really interested in the tech ecosystem and really wanted to join a tech company. Back then, the really only way to get in was by networking, speaking to people in the industry. It's not your traditional like investment banking route where they have opportunities in the tech ecosystem for students right out of college. So I figured the best way in is by networking, talking to the right people, finding out what types of roles I was looking for. And that's what led me to WeWork. In 2017, during my senior year, second semester, I was able to get an internship on the finance team. This was kind of the beginning of the growth trajectory that they began. And I was on the finance team for about a few months, and then graduation happened. And that's kind of when I figured this is the company I want to be a part of. It is, high growth. And I ended up getting a full-time offer on the finance strategy team. So I was there for about a year and a half. And kind of as I was thinking about my career path, I've always wanted to be in partnerships, whether it's a biz dev role, a partnerships role. That's where I always figured my career would take me. So I networked within WeWork and ended up joining the enterprise partnerships team at WeWork. So I was there for about 3 years or so. And this was kind of the turmoil during the pandemic, during the mass layoffs, during the IPO downfall. It was definitely a good experience to go through that type of turmoil early on in my career. I think I learned a lot about resiliency and I guess what not to do at a growth stage company. But overall, it was a great experience. And that's kind of what led me into Crunchbase last summer. Really wanted to join in more so into like a tech company with a focus on technology. And that's what led me to Crunchbase a year and a half ago. And right now I'm on the revenue partnerships team at Crunchbase, focusing more so on data partnerships.
Amazing journey, and Crunchbase is a great company. And I think data partnership and kind of revenue partnerships, something that a lot of people don't really understand, right? Crunchbase has a wealth of data across multiple companies. I would love you to kind of explain what is the data partnerships, how it looks in Crunchbase, and then we go deeper into that.
So I would break it down into two aspects. The first one is data coming into Crunchbase. So we have a few members on the business development team that focuses on partnering with companies that can enrich Crunchbase's data set. So if you go on Crunchbase, you might find various different data points. There's different sources as to how we get that data, but a large part of our business development team, a lot of their key goals is getting us more data points, enriching the data sets, adding more profiles. So that would be the data coming in aspect. On the other side, we have data going out. And that's where the revenue partnerships team sits. And that's the team I'm on today. We focus on partnering with companies ranging from early stage companies, building out their MVP product, to mid to growth stage startups, all the way to Fortune 500 companies. Any company that displays company data and they want to enrich that data, they would leverage the Crunchbase API. So just a few examples that are publicly facing today. If you go on LinkedIn and you search any private company on LinkedIn, let's say, for example, Stripe, you would see funding data powered by Crunchbase. So you can see more about who the investors are for Stripe, what's their funding history, how much have they raised in their history. This gives a great overview for users on LinkedIn to better understand details and company information regarding Stripe. So that's one example. Another example is Yahoo Finance. You might have researchers or analysts looking on Yahoo Finance for private companies. They are also one of our partners where they enrich the data sets they currently have today with the Crunchbase API. So you can search private companies and see more information regarding who their investors are, what's their funding history, how much have they've raised in their history. So those are some of our partnerships we have today. For use cases, it could be, market intelligence platforms, risk management, any of the equity trading type of companies. Really, any company that displays information regarding companies and individuals would greatly benefit from the Crunchbase API. So that's kind of how we define data partnerships between data coming in and then data going out of Crunchbase.
Makes a lot of sense. It kind of makes your partners to share more sort of intelligence probably with their customers, right? But it also gives Crunchbase itself more data, so it kind of enriches the existing ecosystem. I would love you to dig deeper into how it's different from partnerships, because from one side, you spend some time in business development and kind of sales, maybe roles, and your current role is data partnership, but also it's about revenue, how it's connected with revenue, how it's actually sort of partnerships, which is typically sort of two-sided.
On Crunchbase's side, the value exchange for Crunchbase is, the first aspect is revenue. That's definitely a key component of our team, is generating new revenue sources. When you go on Crunchbase, there are ways to sign up. That's more so of our software product. So on the revenue partnerships team, we try to find ways to generate new sources of revenue. And that's where data licensing would come in. So the first value exchange is revenue for Crunchbase. The second part that I think is super important is helping spread awareness of the Crunchbase company, of the Crunchbase data set. We call this attribution. So anytime we partner with a company and they leverage and license the Crunchbase API, they would need to provide attribution to Crunchbase. So if you go on LinkedIn, you search the private company, you'll see funding data powered by Crunchbase. So a key goal of our team is to spread awareness of the Crunchbase data. So when a user is looking at LinkedIn, a user is looking at a startup company, and they see profile information that's powered by Crunchbase data, it's helping spread awareness of Crunchbase's company, Crunchbase's data set. So I would say for Crunchbase, there's two components. There's the revenue aspect, but it's also, how do we spread awareness of Crunchbase? How can we generate more users to the Crunchbase platform? So I would say on our end, that's the value exchange we get. On the partners' end, there are a few components. Number one, they get valuable data sets that are coming from Crunchbase. Crunchbase is known as the go-to platform to find more information regarding companies. But I would say the bread and butter of Crunchbase is funding data. When you're thinking about, I want to learn more about a startup, who are their investors, how much have they raised in their history, the go-to platform is Crunchbase. So on the partners' end, they get valuable information and valuable data points. One example could be, let's say a recruiting company is one of our partners and they leverage the Crunchbase API. A few examples that are very valuable to them, their users, let's call them candidates, they get to learn more about a company before applying. So if I'm looking at a LinkedIn opportunity and I can see more information about who the investors are of LinkedIn, how much have they raised? Are they public or are they private? This helps candidates make more valuable data-driven decisions. On the other side, you also have the recruiters. When they're looking at profiles, they might get 10,000 candidates on a monthly cadence. It's very hard to sweep through these candidates to figure out who would be the best fit. So these recruiters have the ability to make data-driven decisions and trying to find those candidates with, it might be relevant industry experience. So if you're a fintech startup, you're a fintech recruiter, I want to find someone who has direct fintech experience. They're able to make those data-driven decisions with the Crunchbase API. So there's definitely a lot of value exchange going back and forth. And that's just the beginning of it.
Thanks so much. So it's like data intelligence, but also brand partnership effectively, right? Sort of spreading awareness. And I think there's a lot of sort of edge cases probably across different industries. We spoke recently with Scott Brinker, who is VP of Platform in HubSpot, probably one of the opinion leaders and thought leaders in MarTech. And we talk about how data is becoming a new oil for a while. but a lot of collaboration now between companies around data. I would love your sort of opinion. How do you see this landscape sort of evolving over time?
For partnerships, specifically in like tech companies, what I'm seeing a common theme are two types of partnerships. The first one, we're probably all familiar with this, is ecosystem partnerships. So answering questions like, how do we keep users engaged on our platform? What are some other product features we can add that will keep our users engaged and keep them on our platform? That's a key thing we're seeing today with different platforms, different startups that are launching, is how do we keep users on our platform? We don't want them going to a different platform to accomplish, another goal. We want to ensure that they stay on our platform. So it's all about adding new features, adding new product capabilities. So it becomes that all-in-one platform. You're seeing all these different companies coming out with different features. Airtable is really focusing on data analysis. How can we collect different data sets from your current Salesforce and really create that more enhanced version of what you're currently building on Salesforce? Scratchpad is coming out with features of, you don't need to go to Salesforce. You can do everything on Scratchpad. So it seems like a lot of these types of companies are building tools and partnering with other companies in order to add more of these product capabilities and add more functionalities to their platforms. On the other side, we also have, I think this is a super interesting one, and I'm seeing more and more companies creating these types of teams and roles, are VC partnerships. In my opinion, I think this is an excellent opportunity to unlock customers through one medium instead of targeting hundreds and hundreds of prospects. When you think about VC firms, they might have 1,000, 2,000 portfolio companies who all could be potential users of whatever product, whatever feature, whatever platform you're selling. Going directly to a VC firm is more efficient, and it's a great way and a great opportunity to unlock revenue. So typically you could work with the head of platform or head of community at a VC firm and try to sell into their portfolio companies. Instead of targeting 1,000 companies, you can target one specific profile at a VC firm that gives you the opportunity to sell into these portfolio companies. And you're seeing this type of role at the large Fortune 100 companies, AWS, the Googles and the Facebooks of the world. They're really focusing on this type of VC and private equity partnership as a great way to unlock revenue through these venture capital firms.
We did a great interview with Lauren, who's kind of partnership in OnDeck, right? Which is not a VC firm, but a sort of community, and it has some features related to VC. I've seen recently sort of Brax is pushing hard. I think America is doing like a lot of things with VC communities. Obviously, Y Combinator is sort of one of them, which has like entire sort of ecosystem of startups just collaborating with each other. Totally agree with you. From your vantage point of being inside this data partnership and kind of running them day-to-day and launching. So what do you think is sort of do's and don'ts of data partnerships?
That's an excellent question. And I feel like there's never a right answer. I feel like a lot of people have different opinions of what you should be doing. Some people have a different point of view. From my point of view, from my experience working at WeWork, working at Crunchbase, a couple do's, I would say don't sell, but rather understand what the partner is looking for. These are always the questions I'm asking on my partner calls at Crunchbase. A few examples might be, what data are you currently surfacing on your platform? And what data points do you wish you could have? This is a great way to unlock, is this the right fit? Is this the right partnership? Because they might be looking for specific data points that is completely out of the realm of Crunchbase's data set. And I don't want to force the Crunchbase API in them if it doesn't make sense. I also try to understand, what does the product roadmap look like for this company? If they have plans to expand, to certain regions or expand their product capabilities over the next 6 to 12 months, I want to ensure that this API makes sense for them. And for full transparency, you want to make sure you find the right partnership for this company. There might be a data alternative for them that would make more sense given their use case. So I would say it's all about unlocking and figuring out what makes the most sense for your partner. And is this the right opportunity for both parties? It might not make sense for Crunchbase. It might not make sense for the partner. So it's having those candid conversations with your partners to understand, what are your goals and what are you looking for out of this partnership, and seeing if it's the right fit. In terms of don'ts, I always say, don't force a partnership on a company. Specifically at Crunchbase, I don't want to force a data API on a company that I think might be the right fit, but I'm not seeing, all of the notes from them that are showing that this is the right partnership. So it's all about finding the right partner. Don't force the product. Don't sell into them without knowing what their goals are. And another thing I think about is, will this company be around for a while? I kind of use our venture capital hat, we call it, where we start doing our own analysis of these companies to understand, will this company be around for a while? Are they recession proof? Will they get through a economic downturn? So it's very similar to an investor's mindset is, do we want to dedicate our time and resources and partner with this company if we don't believe they're going to be around through the next 6 to 12 months? So it's very important to understand the needs, the goals of your partner, making sure that you're not forcing whatever you're selling, whatever partnership you're trying to accomplish. First, try to unlock their goals, understand what they're looking for, and figure out, is this the right partner for us? Can we find a right sustainable deal model that would work for us? And can this be a long-term partnership?
When you think about sort of Crunchbase and partnership, right, you sort of immediately start thinking, okay, like Crunchbase has a lot of data, and probably partnering with VCs which sort of makes a lot of sense, and kind of forecasting and using this data. I'm still wondering, apart from sort of embedding your product into someone else's product, do you also partner with maybe some investors and taking advantage of like all this wealth of the data that exists on Crunchbase? So how do you sort of think about it?
Yeah, so we actually do have a Crunchbase venture program. Right now, I think we partner with over 4,000 VC firms across the globe. And we kind of share data. It's a very small industry, and there's a lot of value and a value that can be shared amongst investors and Crunchbase. So we do have a Crunchbase venture program where if you're a VC, you have portfolio companies, you want to share that data with Crunchbase, we can definitely work out a partnership. So we do have an official program where we do partner with VC firms and exchange data as well.
Maybe the last question related to Crunchbase and sort of data partnerships. If you was to sort of project maybe like a few years ahead, and not necessarily about Crunchbase, but sort of about sort of data partnerships, is there any things that you sort of particularly excited about?
And I've mentioned this a few times, but what really excites me is the aspect of data-driven decisions. Right now, I'll give you a few examples. When you go on Spotify and you're seeing that Spotify is recommending songs to you, I think that technology piece is really interesting, how they know exactly what type of music you listen to, and they will recommend similar songs based on your history. You're seeing it in the entertainment industry. When you go on Netflix and they recommend different types of movies, different types of shows based on your past. So I like the aspect that it's all personalized. It's customized based on the user's needs and what they've been watching or listening to. So on Crunchbase's end, what really excites me on the data partnership side goes back to the data-driven decisions. So as companies are, embedding Crunchbase data on their platform, they're enabling their users to make data-driven decisions. I think that's key, especially when you're looking at enterprise sales, trying to sell into, product teams, into sales teams. You want to ensure you're getting the right information that's customized to you. A salesperson at company A might have very different needs than a salesperson at company B. So they should be seeing a platform that's recommending different profiles, different prospects to them that makes sense and is customized to that company. So I would say what really excites me is the aspect that Crunchbase is the leader in helping companies make data-driven decisions. On the Crunchbase platform, a typical use case you might see is a sales prospect coming in and kind of having that Netflix profile where they could sync in their Salesforce. Our platform can understand what types of companies they're selling into and hopefully recommend, similar to Netflix, recommend different profiles or prospects they should be targeting. So I think that aspect of data-driven decisions is definitely exciting. I think that's going to be the future of enterprise sales, of the entertainment industry, music, but definitely focused more on the B2B sales as well.
We look forward to seeing sort of more and more powerful capabilities in Crunchbase, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I do see that more and more companies sort of ingest each other's data, exchange data, and it's becoming more and more kind of powerful and sort of exciting. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your previous company, which is getting sort of reborn now, right? We use WeWork frequently, and it's still like number one in shared sort of office space. The reason why I want to talk about WeWork because it has a lot of best-in-class capabilities. You was in partnership team in WeWork, and WeWork also had like a biz dev and sort of sales team, right? A lot of people who now sort of work in partnerships, they have this question still, surprisingly, that like how it's different from sales. I would love your story about how WeWork structured partnerships and how sort of it was different from sales.
I can give an overview of how our teams were structured a few years ago back at WeWork. So first, our enterprise sales team at WeWork, they mainly focused on working directly with the client themselves. So think of these as large customers and really helping them attain their goals of global expansion. So you might have, let's say, for example, it could be IBM. They are looking to expand office spaces within WeWork, within the US, within Japan, and maybe China. So our enterprise sales team would mainly have that relationship with the client themselves. So working directly with the IBMs and the large customers in order to help gain global expansion. So that was the goal of our enterprise sales team. The BD and partnerships team, and I will say every day it changed. There were certain times where there was a strategic project we're working on. So I'll give an overview of what the main goals were and then a few strategic projects that we worked on. So I would say the main goal was partnering with real estate brokers who represent these large clients. Very similar to like the VC partnership where you're unlocking revenue opportunities by going through one individual instead of trying to target hundreds and thousands of customers. This had a similar goal, I would say. So it could be partnering with the JLLs, the CBREs, the Cushman and Wakefield broker firms. These top accounts, they represent these large clients. So you might, let's say a BD individual at WeWork would partner with a specific real estate broker at CBRE. They would have an opportunity to work with 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 enterprise clients. So it was a great way to expand relationships globally with multiple clients by working with one partner directly. So some examples, you might partner with a CBRE firm who might represent the Amazons, the Facebooks, and the Googles of the world. So you're working with one partner directly who can then get you access to multiple accounts globally. That was the main goal of our BD partnerships team. We also had strategic projects, finding ways, how can we spread awareness of the WeWork profile? One example is we had like a services store where members can go in, log into their accounts, and they can see they can get access by purchasing different software tools, productivity tools, lifestyle tools. Some examples, members can get discounts at companies like Slack, Microsoft. It could be Salesforce, Airtable, and then going to the lifestyle or productivity, you could get discounts at gyms. That was one partnership where we worked with different firms to try to get them on our services store. You're seeing a lot of these at different VC firms now, where they give their portfolio companies access and discounts to services and tools. So this is one strategic project that our BD team worked on. Another project, it might be getting WeWork membership or access to credit cards. So if you're a Chase or an Amex cardholder, you might be able to get access to WeWork All Access or WeWork discounts or WeWork desks. So that was another way that we structured a strategic project, or how did we get and spread awareness of the WeWork profile. In terms of collaboration, if an enterprise sales team member is working on closing a deal with, let's say, IBM, and IBM had a broker with them, that's where the sales team and the BD team would come work together. So the BD member would join in with their broker that they've been working with, and the enterprise sales rep would also join in and bring in their enterprise client as well.
First of all, WeWork grew amazingly fast, right? And I think a lot of sort of kudos to the company of being able to do that. But also, I think because the company went through certain type of turbulence, I think a lot of lessons that we can get from WeWork and maybe like your experience could be directly applicable to the current times when we go in probably into some sort of recession in the next several quarters, right? My question is to you, like, what did you learn from leading partnership in WeWork in times of uncertainty?
My experience at WeWork, I would say it was the best thing to ever happen to me. I was right out of college. Things moved very quickly. There might be some strategy changes that you would see on a weekly cadence. That type of environment is so important to learn early on in your career, especially in the startup tech ecosystem when you go through an economic downturn, you go through just rapid changes at startups. I think it's very important to learn that resiliency early on, because once you learn that, you could face any challenge. So I would highly recommend anyone who's young, eager, and wants to join an early stage startup, get that experience early on, because that experience is so valuable as you grow in your career. Specifically at WeWork, what I've learned, kind of their mentality was growth at all costs. And I think back then it was encouraged by VC firms. It was encouraged by the market. We should be expanding to different markets, different global areas. We should be, creating different product lines. That was the key focus, was all about global expansion and growth. And I would say back then, this was 2, 3, 4 years ago, those were the goals of the market. You would see that at every tech company. It was, spend, and grow at all costs. Whatever it took, you're getting VC money. I want that put into growth. Profitability was never a concern 4 years ago. And I think it was super interesting to be at a company working in that type of environment where, profitability didn't matter. And now you're seeing the whole entire market change based off of WeWork. Now, I think a lot of companies, their main focus today is profitability. Back then, from my understanding, growth was the most important aspect and not profitability. So I think it's super interesting. I'm not sure if it's direct, but I really do think WeWork paved the way to showcase that profitability is more important than growth. So just a few things I learned, very important to focus on your core product instead of engaging in different product lines and adding new products and functionalities to your platform. It's really important to focus on that core product, get the revenue out of it, make sure it works. And then if you're seeing profitability, that is a good time to focus and maybe expand different product lines. Expansion versus profitability, I think in today's market, profitability might trump expansion, especially in a recession and downturns. Investors are probably pushing out more towards profitability. And I mentioned the core product, making sure that your core product fits in this marketplace and you have the right users. I would say it might not make sense for a business early on to start growing and expanding into different product lines. Focus on the core product today, measure and get to that profitability. And then once you're in that mature stage, find out what the next step would be. Is there a new product line you should enter? So those are the few things I learned during my experience at WeWork.
What could be actually more directly transferable, right, in terms of knowledge is like, how do you sort of lead partnerships, or like, how do you work with partners in times of uncertainty? You need to build much closer relationship with partners compared with clients even, right? Because then your partners would interface with your potential clients. So how do you keep them sort of engaged? How do you build trust? How do you make sure that this relationship are not falling apart when there's a turbulence in the company?
This is a very interesting question, especially it's relevant today. During an economic downturn or towards a recession, you need to ensure that you have your trust with your partners. One thing that I've been doing that's been super helpful is just being honest and transparent with my partners. So asking those questions, what does your product roadmap look like? If you're building an MVP product with no funding, no real product roadmap, is now the actual time for you to invest in an API? So I always try to be upfront and transparent of asking more about their product roadmap. Do they have budget? Do they have funding? And then being honest with them. Is this the right time for your team to go in, invest into an API, a data API, and start building out your product with that heavy investment without any funding? So it's really all about unlocking the information, understanding what does your product roadmap look like, Do you have funding? And being honest and transparent with them. If I believe that now is not the right time for this company to invest in a data API, I will definitely let them know because that builds trust, transparency, and you always want to be honest with your partners. So I would say, you're seeing a lot of companies being very careful with cash. You're seeing layoffs in the market. You're seeing companies going through hiring freezes. Budgets are constrained right now. So I always think it's finding creative ways to build partnerships. It might not necessarily require cash upfront today. So it's really all about being honest, figuring out what are the goals of your partners, and then are there ways we can both benefit here? It might be rev share. It might be a different type of partnership, a joint venture. So it's really important to build that trust and find ways to work together that might not include cash up front today if your partner cannot afford that during an economic downturn.
To double click on that, from the top of your head, what would be your sort of hypothesis in terms of which partnerships would be more relevant today? Because from our side on the market, for many partnership teams, it's pretty challenging times because partnership typically take time. It's kind of slow comparing with sales where you would sell to customers. What are the things that you would sort of recommend to explore for partnership teams today?
You're going to start seeing during an economic downturn just more creative partnerships. What are areas that both companies can find value? It might not be revenue upfront today. It might be rev share. I think we're going to start seeing more creative deals because a lot of companies are going to be very cash constrained and might not want to invest in a partnership right now that involves cash. So I think we're going to see a lot of creative and different ways of partnering with companies.
I've heard a statistic recently that 65% of investments in early stage sort of fail, right? This kind of translates into partnerships almost like directly. Big chunk of partnerships don't get sort of to fruition or don't get results that are not sort of were expected. I guess that sort of brings us to difficult conversation, and you probably had a chance to do some difficult conversation partnerships in your time on WeWork. Did you have any advice in terms of keeping transparency and building trust, but still having some difficult conversations with partners? How do you do that?
Transparency is key here. So let's say if you're potentially partnering with a competitor product, but you're finding a way, you're trying to figure out what is the right deal model that we should implement for this type of partnership. You want to be honest with this partner and showcase, here's exactly where I think our products overlap. It might be a specific product feature. You might be targeting the same exact user base. You want to show them, this is exactly where I think we're overlapping with our products. And then answer the question, how can we build our products complementary to each other? What are certain areas that we can do together that will benefit both of us without cannibalizing any of our revenue sources? So I would say when you're having these difficult conversations, from what I've learned, you want to build that trust from the beginning. When you build that trust, I think you can really build a unique and a creative partnership that can last a very long time. So I would say it's very important to showcase, here's exactly where we might overlap, and then being honest with them and finding ways to make that partnership work.
Building trust sounds great. And I think it's more about being reasonably open, right? From the beginning and keeping certain cadence of communication and kind of bringing more and more reasons to believe that you are trustworthy and kind of doing incremental stuff. But I'm curious, what's your sort of framework in terms of building trust? How do you think about it?
Excellent question. I would say, we're seeing articles about these layoffs and, people are talking about, we're all humans. We all have the real life aspect of going through a layoff. So I try to put things into that perspective of we're all humans. We all have family. Some people have families. I try to put things on a personal level. So when just having a conversation, let's say our first call with a partner, I like to try to get to know people on a personal level. Where do they live? What interests do they have? Do they have family? Because I think when you build that trust from the beginning and you ask more about personal things, that partner might trust you more and they might want to engage with you and build a partnership. So I think it's all about building a relationship on a personal level, trying to learn more about this partner and getting to know them on a human and personal level. You definitely want to talk that business. You want to understand more about their product. But for me, always at the beginning of calls, I try to get to learn more about that specific partner. Questions might include, where do they currently live? More about their past work experience. there might be shared interests that can really drive a conversation for, it could be hours. But it's really important to get to know your partner on a personal level and learn more about them. I think that's personally key to a successful partnership, is getting to know your partner on a personal and human level.
Very last question is about young people who may be like studying right now or just graduated from college, and they curious about partnerships. And partnership sounds like amazing because you tend to work with multiple companies, you tend to understand the entire ecosystem, and it opens a lot of doors really. But at the same time, it's not obviously easy if you go dig deeper into specifics of the partnership. What is your advice for young people who want to maybe like go into partnerships?
So this is the exact question I was asking when I was young in college, speaking to individuals. I wanted to learn more about what lessons and advice would you give to a college student who wants to go into the tech ecosystem and wants to get more involved in the BD partnership space. So there are a few things, for partnerships, it's not like investment banking where you graduate college and then there's thousands of investment banking analyst roles available to all college graduates. Partnerships is very different. It's not your traditional route. I would say it's typically, 5-10 years throughout, into your career, you might get involved in partnerships. A few lessons that I would give for young college students. Number one is network. It's very important to, I would say a big part of BD partnerships is who you know. And it's all from networking. From my experience, networking was key for me. It gave me the ability to just amass a large network of tech individuals. But number two was to learn. So to understand, what does a BD manager do at a tech company? What do their KPIs look like? What are their goals? What do they focus on? It's essentially a college course. You should amass a network, learn from individuals, and figure out, is this the right role for me? So the first is networking, talk to individuals and learn. The second part is experience different types of roles and different types of companies. I think this is super important to understand what you don't like and what you do like. It's very difficult to say from college, I need to be at a fintech startup. I would love to learn more why you want to be at a fintech startup. So I think it's very important to experience different types of roles, different types of industries and companies so that you can better understand what is the right fit for you and where you can see yourself succeed later on in your career. Finally, I always say this for a new hire, for a college graduate, anyone joining tech for the first time, be a sponge and learn. Ask those questions, ask colleagues, friends, mentors, be a sponge and learn as much as you can early on. And this will lead into the last thing, find a mentor. I think this was key for me, is getting a mentor early on in my career to really figure out and navigate what types of jobs do I want to get? What types of companies should I interview for? Should I apply for? Who should I be speaking to? It's hard for a college graduate to navigate all those difficult decisions. So I think it's very important to get a mentor early on, as they will help you greatly early on in your career.
Great insights for young people, but also people who want to go into partnerships in different stages of their career. Finding a mentor is essential, I would say, or like find multiple mentors. So we're trying to bring sort of more people into our channel to explain how partnership works. Look, I really appreciate your time today. Last question is about how people can contact you if they want to be in touch.
You could send me a message on LinkedIn. That would probably be the best method. And we could always send emails back and forth. My email will be on my LinkedIn profile. So I would say that's the best form of communication. And I'm happy to chat with anyone looking to get into tech, anyone in BD or partnerships that wants to just share knowledge. I am more than happy to have those conversations.
I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. It's been a great conversation.
Of course. Thank you so much again for your time, Roman. I really appreciate it.